please chat us up.
Yeah, send us a message in chat or on Facebook. We'll line you up for the reading.
Yeah, let us know if you'd like to be on the open mic.
I think maybe David Duffy might be interested tonight.
Salty crust.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mark, but unfortunately I have no time. I have to go in 10 or 15 minutes just because of my job. I am on the job right now and watching it, you guys. I wish you all the best. I attended last reading and previous reading. It was cool. I love it. Lit Balm is very good bridge in our society, contemporary world, and this madness, what's going on around us. And
Yeah.
I think this is the main thing, what's happening right now, and internet. It's very precious for me, and I'm deeply honored to be here and to be as a part of this reading show. Thank you.
David. Thank you.
David.
Yes, sir?
Hello.
Hey, Ronald. Good to see you here.
Same here.
Shall we rock and roll, Marissa? What do you think?
Let's do it. Give me one split second, and then I am welcome to Lit Balm, everybody. We are here today with a fantastic show for you today. We have the Gaudy Boy showcase with wonderful voices from Singapore, where it is 5 o'clock in the morning. We have Lawrence Lacambra Ypil. We have, and here from the States, we have Jenifer Sang Eun Park and Paula Mendoza. We have a terrific show for you lined up. If you would like to be on the open mic, please chat us up and we will include you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Mark Vincennes. Mark Vincennes is an Anglo-Swiss poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published 14 books of poetry, including more recently Becoming the Sound of Bees, Leading into the Infinite, The Syndicate of Water and Light, and Here Comes the Night Dust. Vincennes' newest collection, The Little Book of Earthly Desires, and a novella set in China, The Three Towers of Tao, or How to Catch a Fortuitous Elephant, are both forthcoming in 2020 from Sport and Devil. An album of music, ambience, and verse, Left Hand Clapping, is also forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. We are really looking forward to these forthcoming work, Mark. Vincennes is also a prolific translator and has translated from the German, Romanian, and French. He has published 10 books of translations, most recently Unexpected Development by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist Klaus Merz, which you can get at White Pine, and which was a finalist for the 2016 Cliff Becker Book Prize in Translation. About Vincennes' poetry, Cole Svensson has said, Vincennes' poetry asks large and eternal questions and then deftly turns our attention to sharp details, the small ringing specifics that make up the concrete word. And Tony Hoagland, the ambitious poems of Mark Vincennes don't fit into any poetic scene or aesthetic camp I can name. He is an internationalist and his work mixes far-flung flavors, a little Hart Crane, a little Italo Calvini, a little Pavese, possibly a little Vallejo. His poems have been published in many journals, including The Nation, Plowshares, the Los Angeles Review, World Literature Today, Raritan, Asymptote, and Plume. His work has received fellowships and grants from the Swiss Arts Council, the Literary Colloquium Berlin, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Witter-Binner Foundation for Poetry. Vincennes is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press, which has been putting out some fantastic books lately. Check it out. and publisher of New American Writing. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts, overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, and where there are more coyotes and bears than people. Welcome, and looking forward to your poem today, Mark.
Thank you, Larissa.
I'm going to mute the room and unmute you real quick, in case. Okay, thanks.
This is a new poem. It's called Instilled. In instinct, unwavering, absorbing the masterly recasts on Corsica or Cordoba. The passage of time is in years. But don't go south, they say. It's too meager. It's not what it wanted to be. It adheres to the tides. That falling strength, the strands that weave, that hold us fast. The heart thrashes, and so too perhaps may be defined in the delta, where walls are cinnabar and the green of trees stretches skyward. Those human acts of which we're accused, the road caked at window level, the swarm of disappearing acts, all hands on deck. Do you feel the fattening of waistlines, the city street at your side, that going down into the flinching just by the tavern door, that plunging into sincerity? All those voices, don't you wish to fuse with the sky, to toss the chicken bones into the sea? Don't you wish to become the gnarled tree, or the breakers on the sea, and the brown rocks in that gentle lapping, child's play? To change the void and all that barring. Open the window. Come see the far-flung spring leaves, the dividing land and the iced air, the web of glass beads, the shallow walls, the breathing, the heaving of the outdoors. Thank you, guys. And of course, next up we have the illimitable Jonathan Penton, who in 1998 founded unlikelystories.org, an electronic journal of literature and art. Since then, he's lent editorial and management assistance to a number of literary and artistic adventures, such as Mad Hat Inc., the New Orleans Poetry Festival, Rigorous, a journal for people of color, and Big Bridge. In 2005, he founded Unlikely Books, which publishes 3 to 5 poetry books a year. He's organized literary performances and performed himself in places across the United States, like Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, Chihuahua, Louisiana, New Mexico, North Carolina, Texas, Washington State, Ohio, and DC. His own poetry books are Last Chap from Virgin Press 2004, Blood and Salsa, and Painting Rust, Unlikely Books 2006, Prosthetic Gods from New Sins Press, Wing City Chapbooks 2008, Standards of Sanity from Litfest Press in 2016, and the free e-chap Backstories, which you can download from Jeffrey Side's Argotist ebooks online. I'm delighted to introduce to you my co-host, Jonathan Penton.
Thank you, Mark. So, being not very prolific, what I do most weeks is read a poem that we published in the last week at unlikelystories.org. And this week I'd like to read excerpt from An Unknown Last Act by Matt Morris. And I've been reading this aloud for most of the morning, but it's got extremely unusual scansion, which is really quite fun and wonderful on the page, but might trip me up here a little, so bear with me. Excerpt from An Unknown Last Act by Matt Morris. No known recording of Rex Harrison speaks singing Edgar Allan Poe's The Bells exists. its weirdly lilting rhythms spilling out from a ghoulish version of My Fair Lady Never Staged, a dreadful loss for humankind like Shakespeare's lost plays or the Soviet Union's collapse. I do a pretty good impersonation of Harrison, but who can do Shakespeare justice and not chafe or worse from wearing cheap nether hose? Also, let's not forget what became of Russia, not to mention world, sad thing that it is, after Gorbachev, unpaid workers who lost their life savings, gunned down along with children in the streets. Does Boris Yeltsin ring a bell? Does Quasimodo? Such tragedies are why we want more Shakespeare, so we can see what Love Labours Won is like, already knowing about losing. Why we could use every now and again some small reminder that you needn't be a singer to sing, that we can make a song from anything. For instance, Poe's ham-fisted poem, Why We Need Someone to Oppose America's Global Stranglehold, an endless cycle of war before there's nothing left of this earth to fight over. Come on, Rex, old boy, rise from the dead and give us one last song. Thank you. Again, that's by Matt Morris, and it's up on unlikelystories.org. All right. I'm going to turn the show over to our wonderful co-host, Larissa Schmilo. Larissa's new novel is Sly Bang from Spite and Dival. Her first novel is Patient Women from Blazevox. Her poetry collections are Medusa's Country from Mad Hat, Special Characters from Unlikely Book, In Pran from Blazevox, the chapbook A Cure for Suicide from Savannah Barbara Press, a wonderful chapbook, and the ebook Fib Sequence from Argotist eBooks. Again, that's Jeffrey Side's site, and you can download it for free there at Argotist eBooks. Her poetry albums are The No Net World and Exorcism, for which she won the New Century Best Spoken Word Album Award. New Century Best Spoken Word Album Award. Her work has appeared in the anthologies Measure for Measure, an anthology of poetic meters from Penguin Random House, Words for the Wedding from Penguin, Contemporary Russian Poetry from Dalkey, and Choice Words, Writers on Abortion from Haymarket. She's the original English language translator of the first futurist opera, Victory Over the Sun, by Alexei Krushenich. How was that? Close enough? Performed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Garage Museum in Moscow, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and theaters and universities worldwide. She also edited the anthology 21st Century Russian Poetry from Big Bitch Press, and has been a translator on the Russian Bible. Larissa?
Okay, great. I am going to read a poem called Shore. It will continue, he said, even when the water breaks white, even when the surface currents seem to be going the wrong way. The river, I tell him, is gray, and the ocean is for others. I have crossed the river on stones and planks while others swam, inviting me in, and I dove just to please them, pretending I could swim too. My path is broken, the whitecaps are hard. There are too many gaps always. I must find the connector. I use wire and wood and rusty nails, these broken rafts, whatever it takes to cross. I don't know tides or currents, have never understood how the river flowed. Perhaps it does not. There is only the leap in my heart and my mouth. I can't walk this hard water or swim, and I will never see land. I will be your dolphin, he says, and you will not drown. How can I explain that I'm not afraid of drowning? I have drowned many times, come up gasping for air and dead many times. What it is that I can't swim and the water is hard. It will continue, he says, even when the water seems to be going the wrong way. Thank you. Okay. It is now my pleasure to introduce our features for the evening. I am first going to bring up Paula Mendoza. Paula Mendoza earned her MFA at the University of Michigan and is currently a PhD candidate at the University of Utah. Her first book, Play for Time, was selected by Vijay Seshadri for the Gaudy Boy Poetry Book Prize and launched in the spring of 2020. She lives and writes in Salt Lake City. Paula, please go ahead.
Let me find her, sorry. There you go.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jonathan. Those were really beautiful. Thank you. It's a joy to be reading with my Gaudy Boy crew. Gaudy Boy represent. All right. Engineer. I took it apart. When it was whole, it wasn't right. Gaps everywhere, nothing locked into place. I laid out each piece on the floor in order of how they felt in my hand, their weight, roughness, and what I imagined they did when once they held together. This must have grinded all the rest forward, I think, as I set a gear down third in line. I don't know what to do with any of them. It is morning and still cold when I walk outside with what inside my fist feels smoothest, heaviest, and knock something living out of a tree. It made a sound softer than I would have figured a small furred body falling into dirt might make. Whole, it wasn't right. Apart, lined up against each other, they were near enough good. I left the body to be eaten by the stray we named. Inside lay more pieces to find, for each some better use. Leave the sky to who shall wear. That vast blue drag. In shade I paled, frightened through aisles of cypress. Sung in the dark the path's vein. So long unseen, in the long unlit I unearthed her. She was full of doors and tender with hum. Her heart a clock engine with tripwire and fish hooks. Eyes the color puce. You can be in love with this. If she dies tomorrow, I will leave my skin for her to crawl back into. Lyric. Perhaps this, too, is a move. Listen, here's another. Not unlike the way vines clamber glossy up a trellis. That is cloying. I'm sorry. Maybe if I hold myself up against this one beam of light to burnish a collarbone soft as how you used to kiss along its slope, we can find our way back there. I can be backlit by lens flare for you. We can be swallowed gold in the sepia of it, and my hair will be something more than the clog pooling murky water around our ankles. It can find its shine in a line. It will be a heavy curtain of secrets, or wilder, as in weather. It has been storms before. It has been various hours of night. I have been wanting to write outside of thinking, but it's hard out here for a poet. I'm stupid with spring and impatient with those that refuse to burst, too stubborn to purple such sudden luxury out of the ground. I know, always with the goddamn flowers, but really, what if our fresh foolishness can compete with their dumb bloom? We should all be that ready to die. Halfway. You are between two animals, between two attributions, at the crotch of a river's fork, at a loss at least, between all losses tendering alms, by the skin of one's stolen teeth, the lethargy of one newly shorn. To derive, say, attenuate, say, starved to a taper, a porousness, false asphodel if aphasic, if sticky, Vaseline smear of focalization, ocean maw and mountain blade recede. At last, at least this, a figure gathers line and edge. She is between two roars. Who devours or drowns? Say shore when you mean precipice. Say split when you mean in pieces. Redoubled at the jut of some far becoming. Between, to say the least. A shade and its absorption. To swatch a sea's phonemes, to score what of light she keeps to let through. The end. An arc is only eventually somebody, inevitably something. Told in cards, crystal, the lines cut and feathered on palms or bled through paper. Kept and begin is idling, is neither dug deeper or getting up. Too often, knees, their buckle. Less the thought than how a word sidesteps the middle and ends. Once upon a blue-skied, sunlit hell, I contrived a precipice, decided she is the story, full of holes. About 3 more. Late October. Don't say lost. North is nowhere and you are not home. Eat these crisp red leaves. Like the child we saw, fistfuls of brittle fire, mouth loud with crackling. Or another who broke out of his mother's hold again and again, gazed fixed into the middle distance where nothing takes shape. In this place, trees bleed before they're bare. Fall's gold hits me in the chest. I think, what the fuck did we do to deserve this? It is so beautiful, I feel obscene. One after the other. Luminous with lack, I billow invertebrate in salt and algal dark. A thing making sense, one human at a time in this lean doom. The narrative in violet declines chromatically. I order my days by depth of hue. Light is sensible and fathoms where history refused. Before self shades into name, the foreground spores atomic. Swaths of nothing to call back or by her name. Loitered at doors, coming or going, was I set against 4 walls or the shore and sand? Does the story confuse its tense? Does she cohere like skin, how it holds our hells together, syntax and sheath? If you believe, there may still be hope. I might still convince you. When someone happens in my life, the minutes undulate and bloom. And anthers of stamen burst to cloud my flight, void of story, all flaw and collapse. Let me suspend your dread for awe. Let me care for you in our time of lead. Reels reimagine her unbroken and nameless until I name her unmade. Before maker, she makes herself a thing, making sense in this lean doom, regardless of what in fact happened, is happening, the ground or ocean to swell her heavy, sunk in a salt and algal dark, all light, all lack. And last poem, Go To. When it's been told, all told, every lifetime I revisit, stroke of nostalgia atomizing clementine or chlorine, some scent I recognize or don't, but fold into new convolutions, the same story reordering my days and verbs ahead, and I can't for the line of me extract any more than I am tired. I am tired of myself when I think of you and know where we are headed towards the last word, always the first, again, again. Thanks.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so very much. Very fantastic reading. Thank you so much, Paula. Next up is Jenifer Sang Eun Park. Jenifer Sang Eun Park's debut book-length poem, Autobiography of Horse, was selected by Wong Mei as co-winner of the 2018 Gaudy Boy Poetry Book Prize. Her essay, Yes, Yellow Like My Dad, was selected by Ira Sukrung Gruang as the winner of the 2018 Under the Gum Tree Creative Nonfiction Prize. She also has worked in Mid-American Review, Word Riot, Handsome, Story South, Coppernickel, The Volta, Dreginald, Perversion Magazine, Diagram Mantis, Essay Press, and elsewhere. Jenifer lives in Tuscaloosa and teaches at the University of Alabama, where she earned her MFA in poetry. Please take it away, Jenifer.
Hi, thank you, Larissa, Jonathan, and Mark. And so nice to see my Gaudy Boy family, G and Lawrence and Paula. Nice to see you for the first time. That was goosebumps. I got the chills listening to you read. I'm going to read an excerpt from my Gaudy Boy book, and just toward the beginning. In the OMAC suicide race, horses and their riders have 50 feet to rush, then sprint 500 yards down Suicide Hill, a rise grading with a 60-degree slope. After successfully sprinting down the hill, the horse and rider must cross the Okanogan River. After the sloppy 50-yard swim, the horse and rider climb out to speed toward the finish line. Excited spectators eagerly greet the drenched and dirty survivors. Some horses fall and roll to the bottom of the hill, or, unable to grasp their breath or footing, sink and disappear into the river. Other horses die during training, in practice trials, or after completing the race. Though the race began in 1935, only 21 deaths have been accounted for in the last 25 years. In 344 BC Macedonia, a bullish black horse was offered to Alexander the Great's father, King Philip II. Unable to tame the horse himself, the king watched disapprovingly as his men took turns trying to calm the massive horse. From a short distance, 13-year-old Alexander observed these attempts and waged 13 talents against his father for the opportunity to tame and keep the horse. Humored, the king acquiesced. In one swift exchange, Alexander straddled the horse and named him Bucephalus. Defenders of the OMAC suicide race argue that the race is the ultimate demonstration of the animal and human working in complete unity. In order to display such ostentatious athleticism, the horse and rider must fuse into a single harmonious unit. What they fail to mention is that unity requires a loss from both parties, that the rider is the one being ridden, that the horse will die, but the rider won't, that the horse will never really die. Since 1980, runners and riders on horseback have gathered to race on the scenic 22-mile stretch in Lanyard Wells for the annual Man vs. Horse Marathon. Though now an established event, the race began in jest. Gordon Green, a pub owner, overheard a couple of patrons discussing theories of the differential endurance between the horse and man. A patron hypothesized that over a long distance, a man can beat a horse in a race. Intrigued, Green organized the first Man versus Horse marathon. Hundreds of individuals tested their bodies against the horse. The horse, however, is known for being a particularly difficult opponent. It was on the 25th anniversary of the race that a human, Hugh Lobb, first beat the horse. Finally, the town yelled. Many horse enthusiasts claim Alexander to be the first horse whisperer because he understood the horse's capacity for fear. Afraid of his own shadow, Bucephalus nervously trotted around the large puddle cast onto the ground. Alexander cupped Bucephalus's face, turned him toward the sun, and mounted the golden black smokestack. On Bucephalus's neck, Alexander hung a pendant embossed with the heads of gorgons. Around Bucephalus's neck, Alexander hung his eyes. A camera is attached to the helmet of a rider, a young white horse. The race begins. Whipping, down the hill they go, shaking, yelling, the descent, the heartbeats, they plunge into the river. Riders fall from horses, horses twist out into the periphery, whipping, water on the lens, water plugging nostrils, horses pushes forward, whipping, they climb out, the added weight of water, the added weight of breathlessness, whipping, they sprint, the shaking, the lens occluded by rising dust, the panting and throbbing, the strain of each push forward, the horse is not here, the horse crossed the finish line before I even started. It's not certain whether or not Bucephalus died from wounds delivered at the Battle of Hydaspes. It is certain, however, that in the exact moment Bucephalus passed, Alexander felt his feet loosen from the earth. The massive coffin cast a larger shadow, and in that shadow Alexander stood, motionless and blind. Equine self-mutilation syndrome is a condition involving a repetitive and seemingly dysfunctional sequence of movements. An otherwise normal horse could develop a habit of biting herself from flank to shoulder to chest. Another otherwise normal horse could start shaking her head repeatedly, as if to say no, no, no to whatever distresses her. Though self-injurious, quote, the performance of a stereotypy, no matter what the initial precipitating cause, is self-rewarding, end quote. Stereotypies have been associated with a variety of factors, such as excitement, stress, boredom, and the scent of poop or piss. A few years ago, I developed the habit of grinding my teeth. A committee would call it bruxism. My mom noticed this when we shared a hotel room in Colma. You grind your teeth, she said as we ate breakfast. I stopped eating and looked at her. I didn't know what it sounded like, so I looked it up. A woman recorded her husband grinding his teeth in his sleep. It is the worst sound a human can make.
Thank you so very much, Jenifer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. All right. Next up, we have Lawrence Lacambra Ypil, who is the author of The Experiment of the Tropics, Gaudy Boy Press, a finalist for the Lambda Awards and longlisted for the 2020 Leaper Book Awards. His work explores the intersection of history, photography, and poetry. He received an MFA in nonfiction from the University of Iowa and an MFA in poetry from Washington University in St. Louis. He teaches creative writing at Yale NUS College in Singapore, and coming to you from Singapore, where it is currently the future, Sunday, 5:37 a.m., we have Lawrence. Lawrence, please take it away, and thank you for being here at such an early hour, and from the future.
My pleasure. Thanks to the host of Lit Balm. I'm really happy to be reading with the Gaudy Boy folks and to have G in the room and to finally read with Paula and to be with Jenifer and her horses again. I really miss you, Jenifer. Okay, a few poems from The Experiment of the Tropics. There is a chair, but no one sits. There is a flag, but there is no wind. Stars and stripes, sun and sand made good weather. There is a cabana on a ship, a slip, a skirt is what a woman holds of another and asks where at, how much. Style as a way of asking without asking for a name, sigh below, the temporary address of a blank look, or a quick comeback made in retrospect, or the double take of then, now, never, or the return of the sideburn. A stranger checked her out, but already her arm was hooked under a brother's. A party was a crowd gathered into the smallest area possible where everyone looked at anywhere else except at the camera. That collection made on the faintest trace of there, dear sir, if you can walk towards the gangplank, if you can walk towards the gangplank and be still. In the time it takes for the shadow of the world to reach the shadow of the knee of the woman sitting in the park under a tree, a photograph is developed. Drip, drip, splash, then all right, then a dry mount against the wet, wet grass. When the city's architects ask what could be done with the past, they didn't anticipate glass. They believed the ocean, with its endless shimmer of always, would make the dame denizens of the city sick from squinting at the sea. What reprieve the streets could be, what rain falling endlessly from the eaves of shop houses as a line of trees becomes the token gesture nature makes to signify an elsewhere here, where a woman slowly rises to become the shadow of me. A fashion is a fashion. The difficulty of the law as it was written, the difficulty of love as demeanor. If you let it so, what a novel. What a figure in a suit. The slack pants are made of. What landscape. I moved a chair once to face the window, thinking this is what I needed, to fold one's legs, to let one's hair go. We took from the war what we wanted, a 3-button jacket, a uniform for home, which was a vest really, with some really long lapel where the fold folded over, where I could not hold what held, a silhouette of hunger, where the cuff hurt, where the sleeve almost reached the wrist, and one's pants could not cover the shoe, so you had to raise it. A leg, a fist of nothing. Just sitting there looking at the distance, a stray strand of hair, the strip of stripe of here and there and here again, and in that particular hierarchy of relation. The experiment of the tropics, as a nest among the trees, as a garden among the bigger garden of the sea, mountain, view, as a wish that were drawn to scale so the idea became foldable, a mere scaffold discarded for that long-lasting thing, that revivalist thing style, which, as the master carpenter implied, went beyond road, fort, nut, bolt, wharf, a nail in a railroad, a pipe that opened and closed, the central portico, the color and the texture of a solid colonnade, of indice silence, which was her sense of water flowing across the experiment that was the tropics. A riverbank made private, a theater of night guards, a soda parlor of that foreign good whiskey tractor red tin can with a picture of a scarab and a Quaker oat acquisition, that American thing, the good old good cheese and grape. There was a tennis court in the club where you hit a ball and nothing returned. We munched on its brandy biscuit. We ordered 2 of it. Shrub and bush. In the American style of learning by lying on the lawn, and that new Baroque interior of labor, craft, that filigreed stitch of gold and shrub and bush and heft and wood, that school of soil on the grounds of how to work by talking about work. No lace, no song. Nothing was real unless it moved. No slouch, no south. No elsewhere was that transposable spite of weather. That picture of a cliff without a stone, of grass to hold, by forest tended, by music melded, in the attempt to understand inertia, or the notion that yours and mine and ours was measured by the distance from the side of the road, which was otherwise called a porch. And then just one last. It's been such a pleasure to like enter the world of Paula and Jenifer. Like when I was listening to them, I just wanted to stay with them. And it's also like, you know, like mentioned, it's early dawn. The sun hasn't even risen yet. And I'm just like, how, you know, why do we begin our days if not like this? Every single day should begin like this.
And you're very
one more. It's called there are 14 ways. There are 14 ways to say I might. 50 ways to turn the tide. 2 kitchens, 1 dry. There is a picture of a room within a brightly lit afternoon where my aunt sat staring at the bougainvillea until the day it died. She fell to the ground 3 times, but then stood up, while the men in the kitchen sat after the meal had been set, eyeing the silver she had gathered, the lacquer. 13, 14, she began each morning with hot water. She lived on a diet of fish. There was a chair, but she didn't sit on that. She was my aunt. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Well done. Splendid. Thank you. Thank you for the splendid readings from Paula Mendoza, Jenifer Sang Eun Park, and Lawrence Lacambra Ypil. Wonderful, wonderful readings. Thank you so very much. It was definitely a brilliant, brilliant Gaudy Boy showcase. Thank you so very much. A few announcements before I start the open mic. I'd like to thank our technical director, Amanda Roberts, for all she does for us, publicity, and the work she does for this reading to keep us going. We thank you. I would like to tell you also about some upcoming shows that we're having. Next week, August 22nd, Australian Poets. We will have John Kinsella, Cassandra Atherton, Shastra Dio, and Judith Crispin. Do not miss this thing. We will have a film from John Kinsella. This will be a wonderful show. Please come. And on August 29th, we have another Founders reading. Mark and Jonathan and I will be reading a more extensive reading of our poems, and our very special guests are Quincy Troop and Keith Lynn. So that is going to be a great show. So please remember us on August 22nd, Australian Poets, and August 29th, Founders Reading with Quincy Troop and Keith Lynn. Fabulous. All right. So I guess we'll now move on to our open mic. And I would first like to bring up Rodney A. Brown. Are you here, Rodney?
I just hit ask to unmute. Rodney, are you there? Ah.
Is Rodney there?
I am here.
Okay, great. Rodney, take it away.
Okay, I'm gonna read one line of a poem that's at unlikelystories.org, and I'm gonna read it 2 different ways. It'll take me about 45 seconds. Enter hoodies, enter waving actions of hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. The intersections of dance and poetry. Thank you very much, Rodney A. Brown. Next up, we have Ilari Pass. Ilari, can we unmute Ilari and hear from her today?
Hi.
Hi, Laurie.
Hi. This is a poem I'm kind of like working on. It's called A Line is a Dot That Went for a Walk. Art is a gesture toward home. By hand, the ink makes demands I call my own. Steadfast and awful and crooked over all the things it knows. On this particular stretch of the walkway, doing the alphabet, that silly game, hoping some letter will retrieve a name. Sometimes it works, but how could a name be lost? Sometimes you sense what distances they came to visit you in dreams, calling you by name. It's you, you think, but who? At once it comes. The fact that there's a snake tunneling through the grass doesn't make the parting of the blades any less beautiful. And still the same, art is a gesture toward home.
Thank you so very much, Ilari. Well done. Thank you very much. And speaking of open mics, September 19th, we are jumping the gun on 1,000 Poets for Change, which is celebrated universally on September 26th. We're going to celebrate 100,000 Poets for Change on the 19th with a massive Lit Balm open mic. Sign up now, please, for that open mic by contacting us at Lit Balm, telling us you would like to read. September 19th, massive open mic in honor of 100,000 Poets for Change. So sign up, let us know, message us, go to our page at Facebook, Lit Balm, and let us know you want to read. Okay, thank you very much. Last but not least, we have, we have 2 more. We have 2 more readers. Next, we have Mindy Levikov. Can we unmute Mindy?
And he's unmuted.
Yeah, thanks. Hi. Thank you so much. Beautiful words, you guys. Okay. So this is a combination poem, mine and someone else, words here, words there, put together. Escape, inward and reverse, falling all directions, all ways. Sides of my dress, dignified dessert used to be her spell, her speech. But the edges wrap up the packages. We try, twists in all directions. I'm holding my sides. Complicated starkness, we try instead. The world was an unknown. Swing out. Can't say. What am I doing? When they roost, I search. Dust of the mountain, my ankles so far, I'm returning, shattered, desperately climbing, but haunted, powerful, dizzy, blind, wreck of rank, metal gaze, lilac parasols, laughter in a sleeve, 2 points of view wrapped in our very own to an instant point. So some of that is mine and some of that is from Leslie Prosterman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to you. And in absentia to Leslie Prosterman, thank you very much. Last but not least, we have Bob Heeman. Bob, can we unmute Bob and hear from him, please?
Yes, I'm here. Over the last few years, Cindy Hochman and I have been writing a number of collaborations. So I thought I'd read one of them, since she's actually eavesdropping, but without a mic, you can't hear her. Lazarus wasn't the same when he awoke. Returning from death isn't as easy as it looks. There were all kinds of disturbing memories and fever dreams full of Jesus raising polar bears from their premature deaths, and all other creatures, large and small, from their silent, unmarked graves, sloughing off dust from fur and fin, until sometimes nothing more than a skeleton remained, and they walk the earth in peril and pain, not always recognized as what they once were, defying the laws of evolution, but remaining a reminder of what we all will become when the earth opens up and swallows us whole.
Thank you very much, Bob, and thank you very much to Cindy. Thank you, Cindy Hoffman. Thank you for being here. Even though we cannot hear you, we are very glad you're here. Thank you again, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, we have come to the end of our show. Please, once again, help me thank Paula Mendoza, Jenifer Sang Eun Park, Lacambra Ypil for a wonderful reading, wonderful. Mark, Jonathan, any last words?
Lots of love to everybody and stay safe, you know.
All right, yes, stay safe. Stay safe, Black Lives Matter, wear your masks, and see you next week for Australian Poets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
Great.